There are 10 items on the agenda tonight, and I have reviewed them, and I personally don't think there's anything terribly complicated about any of them, but let's get the show on the road. And we'll start with 115 Strafford Avenue.
Yes, good evening. My name is Bo Erickson, and I'm here for 115 Strafford Avenue. I'm here with my landscape architect, Mike Wagner, and Chuck Dobson, who is our civil engineer. And he has just handed out plans that we will discuss this evening. George Brosman, our attorney, is also here. But basically, if you recall, we were here to meet with you in September and then again in October, where we received your approval for our plan. And this plan is the first plan of the three that I just had Chuck give you. This plan meets all the ordinances and was approved, as I said, in October. But since then, we have gone through conditional use and back to the Planning Commission, and we had some township comments, and we had some minor details from the conditional use that have changed this plan or changed our current plan from this in very small detail. So I'm going to let Mike Wagner, our landscape architect, take you through that. And he also detailed these in the letter that was provided to you in your packet, which describes those minor changes very clearly.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you tonight? As Bo had expressed to you, there were some minor changes that were made to the plan that you approved, and that came about through conversations with the township, but then also some neighbor requests. So the first plan, as you can see, as Bo had told you, this is the plan that you guys approved, the ones that we had talked about, which was dated October 8th, 2013. After the conversation with township representatives and also the neighbors, we put together a revised plan, more per the lines of what the neighbor of the on the northern property line was most concerned about. He was not interested in the flowering trees and or the deciduous trees, and wanted more of the Class B buffer requirement, which was a totally evergreen buffer. So to accommodate him, we removed the shade trees and the flowering trees along the northern part, and ended up putting them within our open, quote unquote, open space area. As a secondary change that was made was through one of the township comments was to add some additional deciduous plant material to the southern property line, again staying within the Class B buffer requirements, but only adding additional deciduous shrubs to add some more flower color instead of just a consistent evergreen look. Thirdly, the eastern property line along the adjoining residential property, we were able to remove the underground storage system, move that to a new location, and then they were able to move some of the material around, relocate it, keeping the same amount of material, but just putting it in a new location. Upon having to remove or to relocate the underground storage, we had to readjust the easement was there and move some additional shrubs, which are in the top right corner. They had to flip to the other side, the southern side of the easement, to be able to accommodate that. So as you can see, there were very minor changes made to the plan. But after that, we understood or got some additional feedback that the open space should be open space and not a wooded open space. And plus, having conversations with the adjoining neighbors earlier in the process, they also told us too that they were not looking at having that open spaced area totally wooded. So that leads us to the third plan. And this is our compromise plan, which we think will work a lot better.
And this is, it says exhibit, what's the exhibit down on the bottom?
Exhibit C.
And that's the most recent one.
This is the most recent plan that we have not submitted, but we're showing here today. This is the one we'd like to go forward with. This one still fulfills all the requirements, but what it also does, it takes into account the adjoining neighbors' concerns, one, about having the shade trees and the flowering trees along the northern property line, and then also the adjoining neighbors and having the whole open space area totally wooded. There was a reduction in the amount of replacement trees, but it was only on the amount of replacement trees that we were offering to put onto our site. So the 15 that were required through the arborist letter, we were looking at putting in an additional 71 because of the standards that we were looking at when we did our observation. After getting the arborist letter, we decided we would still put the same amount of trees in, but after going through additional comments with the residents and the township, we no longer have the space for that. Or do we want to fill up our open space area? Because that was something that the residents did not want. So we reduced the amount of additional replacement trees that we were going to put in by roughly 30. So we're down to a 36 extra above and beyond the 15 that we were required to do.
On the eastern side, just beyond the buildings, what are the things that look like little explosions? They're like grayed out, I guess. Yeah, right around there.
These right here? That's the existing white pine hedge that's remaining.
Okay.
And what we're doing is, as before, all we're going to do is we're going to infill in front of that to create additional screening between the townhouses and also the adjoining neighbors on the eastern side.
And then you just moved that infiltration bed underneath the guest parking stalls there from that Exhibit A?
Yes, that's correct. That was one of the conditions that the Board of Commissioners gave us.
Excuse me. I mean, I have several concerns. The pines that you're trying to preserve, the one that's closest to Unit 3, you're within about 5 feet of its root system with your patio.
More like, it's like 8 to 10.
Okay.
But the patio location, that's just for graphic purposes. We're going to be redesigning the back sides of the buildings.
Okay.
That's the patio areas.
Okay.
So I can assume that it might not even be that big. We are limited on where we can go.
Yeah, but we even believe, as it's shown here on the plan, at 10 feet with that pine tree, I think we can do that without damaging that pine tree. And we will have the tree protection fencing around that during the construction phase of the project.
Yeah, we've been to the site several times, and those trees are at least 12 inches in diameter. You know, you're pushing it with a 8 to 10 feet. I mean, I'm not going to split hairs, but I'm just suggesting it is quite close. Also, the pine tree that's closest to the recharge bed, you're really quite close to that as well. And it doesn't show on this plan, but the previous set that we received suggests that you're also going to put a stockpile of topsoil stockpile out there.
That has been revised in its final, on the final E&S plan, and that topsoil stockpile will be up in this area, so it will not affect those trees in any way.
Okay, well, I caution you on those two, excuse me, particular pine trees. And the usual recommendations that we make when we permit folks to get that close to a tree is that the roots are hand cut, they're not dug, you know, they're not cut by a backhoe. And whatever soil enrichment you can do when you backfill your excavation, instead of putting, you know, stone or clay or whatever happens to be around.
Soil then?
Yes, please.
So, Mr. Chairman, what we'll do is have the applicant note on the plan that in the area of the existing pines. There will be soil enrichment and hand root pruning,
Correct.
and we'll make sure that that's noted on what you hand in on your next set for a planning commission.
And I'll leave it up to the Shade Tree Commission here, but yeah, I'm not a particular fan of Juniperus virginiana. I think there's better species out there that you could use if you're trying to supplement your screening, your evergreen screening. And I would, yeah, I mean, Jim, can you want to chip in on that?
I was going to get to how your conclusion.
Okay.
On that cedar variety, there's an awful lot of other varieties you could bring to the table without that one there. I know if you're diehard wanting to go native on this, but if you could think outside the box a little bit just for an evergreen screen plant that may fit what you need to do, but aesthetically may be a little bit more longer lived or
Okay.
give a little better quality for the future of this site here, rather than just your standard
Okay.
juniper on
Because we
that.
do have a combination of the juniper and also
I saw
the
that.
American arbor there too.
Yeah.
So we have a good combination of evergreens there too. It would not be a problem, look for another variety.
Do you have Nigras in here, or
Yes,
what? Okay.
green giants.
So, if I may, we're going to have the applicant replace Juniperus virginiana with a different species. If we could decide on that, and it'll go on the record.
Yeah,
If the
no,
board has any suggestions?
yeah, white cedar, Chamaecyparis thyoides, is also a native. There are native white pines. It's Pinus fastigiata, right. And that holds its branches.
Okay, if the board's okay with it, we'll make that note.
It's not wet enough for white cedar.
Okay.
If you want to do Fastigiata white pine, we'll be happy to make that substitution.
Okay. And
I'm sorry, could I get the Latin name on that again?
Monostrobus fastigiata.
Prinostrobus will do.
fastigiata. And again, white cedar is a nice. Yeah, you may have some stormwater runoff issues there. I'm not sure, but the white cedars do well if you're in wetland. So that's just my. Okay. Any other discussion?
Just for clarity, on page 4 of your demolition plan, I just wanted to make sure that 36-inch ginkgo is being removed.
Yes, it is.
There's no X on it on this plan.
It's being removed. We'll make sure that on the final plan, it will be noted. And that was noted in the arborist report.
Okay, does the commission have any other comments regarding the change in number of plantings or?
You're reducing the overall number of trees that you were planting. You were reducing it by what, 15, did you say? Or?
It's about approximately 30. We were at providing an additional above what we needed to of 71. And we're now, with this final plan, providing an additional 36 trees above what we need to. But we're complying with all the buffer requirements, street trees, and every detail. And on this roughly 1 acre that we're planting, we have 139 trees and 205 shrubs. So I think it's very well planted.
Okay, are we all in accord? Okay, thank you.
Will we get your recommendation?
Actually, I was going to ask that since Mrs. Jones isn't here tonight. She'll be taking notes based on the video, and if I could ask the board to do a formal vote of approval to go to the Board of Commissioners, that'd be great.
Okay. Is there any public comment here tonight? Will you please step up to the mic and identify yourself, sir? Thank you.
My name's John Fuchs. I'm a partner in the Strafford office buildings, which is the neighbor. I'm the neighbor to the north that he was referring to. I'm glad I'm here because I was surprised to hear that I had asked for pine trees along that property line as a buffer. I don't recall ever saying that. What I have wanted from day one, and have said the same things many times at different meetings, is that there are existing hardwood, large hardwood trees there now. And I understand that they have been determined to be diseased. In fact, apparently the ones on my side of the property are diseased too. But mine have been maintained, and the ones on the Villa Strafford side have not. Therefore, they have dead wood in them that falls out occasionally, and they don't look anywhere near as good as mine do, or as they would look if they received some maintenance. I just feel like a 5-foot buffer with a long line of trees is grossly inadequate compared to what we have there now, which is I've got 25-foot buffer on my side, and there's a 25-foot buffer on the applicant's side. That side contains about 9 large growth maple hardwood trees. And even if it's determined that they are diseased and won't even make it through the winter, the fact that they come down doesn't mean we need to totally abandon all that land in favor of 5 feet of significantly less beautiful, less large and beautiful trees. So I'm sticking with wanting the 25-foot buffer that we have there now. I don't think it's unreasonable. Plus, it allows the planting of trees that can become large hardwood trees again. There's enough room for those trees to thrive, and I think that's important. We can't just remove trees and then consolidate them in a smaller area. They need room to grow, and they need to be all over. And this is an opportunity that we're missing if we let that 25-foot buffer be turned into a 5-foot buffer with a driveway. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The applicant's comments, please.
Yes. What Mr. Fuchs has said, and he said several times, is that he'd like our buffer to be planted as per the ordinance, which this is planted per the ordinance. He has made this comment that he believes he has a buffer on his property, and he'd like us to give a buffer on ours. We're not willing to do that, and there's nothing in the ordinance that says that we should do that. When his property was developed by his father, they built up to the property line, and they built their parking lot as close to the property line as they could. At that time, this was slated to be a road that connected Windsor to Strafford Avenue. The right-of-way has been extinguished. That is what has created this 25-foot buffer. Our requirement us being residential, his property being commercial, is to provide a Class B buffer, which we are doing. And we believe that is what we need to do as per the ordinance. During all of these discussions and at the Planning Commission has suggested potentially this area on Mr. Fuchs's property could be replanted with additional trees. We offered to pay for those trees and provide them. That offer is still on the table. But we're hoping that this plan, which is very well planted, meets all the code requirements, can be approved so we can proceed on to the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners.
Go ahead, sir, please.
Two things. One of the conditions of density modification development, which they received for this property, says that is to encourage land development which preserves trees and natural topography. And those 9 trees that are there now are extraordinary enough that if they can't be preserved, room should be made that they could be put back in a form that they could grow into the same large trees. And secondly, I don't think that using the land on my side of the property to create a buffer is any more fair than it would be for the applicant to move his development closer to the neighbors on the east side of the property where there is an enormous buffer that's been negotiated now, and ask those people, well, I want to go 20 feet closer to your property line, but it's okay. If you're okay with it, I'll plant trees 20 feet into your property. That's how it feels to me. I just think it is, it misses the point.
I'm George Brosman. I represent the applicant. I handled the conditional use, which was the approval needed for density modification here. The Board of Commissioners did grant that conditional use for density modification. There was no finding by the board that the trees that Mr. Fuchs has raised that need to be preserved. The board found that we met all of the requirements for density modification. They subjected that conditional use to conditions of approval, which we have satisfied by amending our plan. And the only reason the applicant suggested planting trees on Mr. Fuchs's property was because one of the Planning Commission members asked us to do that. We asked Mr. Fuchs if he would allow it, and he has said no. So we would hope that you would approve this plan. Thank you.
Mr. Fuchs, any further comment? Shade Tree Commission.
I do have a question. Sorry, and I'm the Parks and Rec guy, so sorry about that. In your, sorry, where'd it go? Exhibit A, it looks like you had large trees along there at one point. And based on Planning Commission and that, you've changed those large trees. Can you put some of those back?
Yes.
Does it matter, or, I mean?
If the board would recommend, yes, we can.
Is that from a tree? What?
Yeah. Let me have our civil engineer address that, because it may conflict with the per ordinance requirements of the.
Thanks, Bill. Good evening, Chuck Dobson with Inland Design. It's a very good question you ask. Initially, the intent was to provide the required buffer, but use a little, I guess, discretion on what that buffer would look like. Your ordinance is extremely clear about what a Class B buffer is, and it is supposed to be a mixture of evergreen shrubs and trees. So it's a very defined element that's part of any land development plan. So what we had intended to do in our initial round of this landscaping was to provide something that we thought met the spirit of the Class B buffer, but had a lot more aesthetic value and also had some of the hardwood values that Mr. Fuchs even spoke about. There became a concern that perhaps that wasn't tight enough with respect to strict compliance with the ordinance, which is what led us to the true Class B buffer. And it's our experience that the 5 foot that we have for that Class B buffer is satisfactory to plant those trees and to ensure that they're going to be viable over the long term. In response to your question, we can certainly put them back. I think it's important to know, and you probably do know this, but I'll remind the board anyway, that the buffer that Mr. Fuchs refers to isn't truly a buffer. It is an open area, it's a lawn area, and there are a small handful of very large trees there, which are obviously in the point of their lives where they're probably not going to last too much longer. And that's a similar situation on our side too. I think the applicant has demonstrated a variety of times that they're more than willing to be flexible, to be adaptive to what the needs and wants of the township are, and also to the needs of the neighbors. But the problem is that when you're trying to serve so many different masters with different wants, you kind of have to draw the line someplace, and that's, I think, what we've trying to do here. So we want to show the township that, as far as the ordinance is concerned, we can put a truly compliant Class B buffer along that northern property line. That's not an issue. What I think the applicant would like to do is maybe have a little more flexibility, but I think at this point in the approval process, that may be something that maybe we can deal with at final plan approval. I think the applicant's need and want is to show the township we can do it compliant with the ordinance, and this is what we've done. As far as moving plant material around, they're already overplanting the site, so if it's a matter of where they end up being placed at the end of the day, I have to believe that the applicant would be more than flexible to not only work with the township's Director of Public Works, the township arborist, and our own landscape professional to really come up with a plan that makes the most sense and at the end of the day does its best to kind of serve all the wants and wish lists of all the people that have said, hey, this is what I'd like to see. So that's maybe a little long-winded answer to your question, but I think I need to provide that context because there's a great deal of effort being spent on the applicant's behalf to try to figure this out. And I think we're getting there, but we just have to kind of work through some of these issues. So that's what I have to say about that. So if you have any questions more about what is compliant or whatnot, I'll be happy to answer them. But this is the way I see it right now.
So who?
And let me add for the board, for the board's edification, the density modification and the issues that go along with that really fall under the purview or under the Planning Commission as an advisory committee, and then the final decision is obviously made by the Board of Commissioners. The purview of the Shade Tree Commission is that really does not fall under you. It's to make sure the plan is compliant, and as you've done, is to make sure that what is planted there is correct or meets your needs. So I don't want to let I understand Mr. Fuchs' concern, and he has attended several meetings with that concern. So I would ask the Shade Tree Committee to view that from a tree standpoint, not from a density modification standpoint.
Right.
Excuse me. I was a little confused about when you said that you were asked to put in a line of trees there, that you weren't willing to do that, and you didn't specify why not. Instead of those 5-foot evergreens. You said the gentleman had asked you to put similar trees in there, and you declined to do that.
No, we were asked by the Planning Commission to add additional trees on Mr. Fuchs's property. We agreed that we would be willing to do that. Mr. Fuchs said he did not want us to do that.
Okay, but I thought he also asked you to put additional trees on your side, and you declined to do that.
Well, that's your previous point here.
I think the point is that what we have 5 foot between the property line and the curb of the driveway going into the site now, which is sufficient for the Class B buffer.
Right.
We are willing to put a different variety of trees in that 5-foot buffer, but I think what Mr. Fuchs was asking for is, his position is that I've got a 25-foot buffer, which is effectively a lawn area. I want them to provide a 25-foot buffer, which would effectively be heavily planted. And I think Where the applicant is saying is, well, we'll give you the buffer that complies with the ordinance. We're also willing to give you a variety of trees, but we only have 5 feet to work with. That's what we have to work with, so that's where we are. So there wasn't a refusal on the applicant's part to do it. It's just we don't have the ability to provide the 25-foot additional space between the property line and the entrance drive that Mr. Fuchs is asking for. That's what it comes down to.
The only way you would be able to do that was if you move the drive, and you can't do that and keep the same number of buildings, is that right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Some trees you can fit into smaller areas.
My understanding is they can put larger trees in there, and that's really not, I mean, they're trying to prove to other boards and the planning commission in that they can actually apply or comply with our ordinances, which it looks like they're doing. And what they're saying is, we can comply, see that, and we'll be happy to put whatever you want in there, but on paper, to get everything through and continue this process down the line for them, they're complying. Sorry.
That's correct. That's effectively where we're at.
And it's not our decision whether they comply or not, it's more our decision to, if we like the trees they put in there, and if we're comfortable with them and they match our board's charter.
Correct. And we'd actually already been down this road once before.
Right.
And we had a great discussion last time, so we're just trying to finish this off so that the other boards have clarification on exactly where you stand on this matter.
Right. I move for approval.
Yeah. Jim, you?
It's just a matter of if our recommendation is going to be in agreement with the evergreen screen per the planning commission, or if we would rather have some shade trees mixed in this mix or not at this point, Howard. Does anybody have a feeling of that as far as tree selection along this property line?
Well, yeah, I'd like to see some shade trees in that mix.
As would I.
Aesthetically and just to get those kind of trees in there. May not be able to get the giants, but there's shade trees that will fit in that area and be healthy. Am I right, Jim? You don't need 25 feet to clear them. There's certain shade trees that'll adjust even a smaller area than that.
Okay, if I just may add one thing, and I'm the least arborist of this group. I'm just a civil engineer. And that's the way I have a tendency to look at things, just for the board's thought. So the applicant is providing a 5-foot buffer, which is the minimum buffer. Not saying they couldn't provide a larger buffer, but they're providing what's required. My only concern, even though this will be a private development, they will be residents of Radnor Township. If certain shade trees are planted in that 5-foot buffer, 20 years from now, 25 years from now, what happens to the curb and driveway, which are at the which form that 5-foot buffer? So that's, I guess, more of a question on my own, but that's what that strip is. It's a 5 foot from the property line, bordered by a concrete curb and then a paved driveway. So.
Could we make a recommendation of replacing a few of these with some shade trees that may be more appropriate for that spot?
Yes.
Maybe a fastigiate English oak or a Columnar sugar maple, what is it, Century, or one of those varieties?
Could I just ask that we be specific and note that it's going to be X trees of X species? Again, because this is going to get passed on, the planning commission will see this, and I'd like them to see your recommendations.
I don't think that would be a problem. What I would probably like to do is maybe relook at the existing buffer that we had already talked about. We had already had the approval, where we had eight larger shade trees and some flowering trees put in there. I would not have a problem with going to a green pillar columnar oak. Very nice plant. It's about 25, 35 feet tall, 15, 18 feet wide. Would do very nice screening there above and beyond. If you want to add that as one of the shade trees, that'd be fine. We could also do some columnar flowering trees too to try to get back closer to that buffer. But then again, that might take away from the solid Class B buffer that we were trying to conform to.
Which is more important, the buffer or the trees? You'll have to forgive me. I'm even less of a tree person than he. I'm the liaison from the Planning Commission. I'm an electrical engineer. Okay, you're going to have to educate me a little bit. If you put some of the shade trees that we were just talking about along here, along this buffer,
Yes.
are these small evergreen trees? Is that what these are?
Yes, we have a combination of small evergreen shrubs, deciduous trees, and flowering trees. So the idea with the shrubs, which we're looking at, we're going to go with some of the Niagara arbs, the green giant arb, but we're also looking at doing, I think there's some English laurel and some northern bayberry in there, which are plants that get 8, 9 feet tall. So the idea is to give a nice screen, but the bayberry and the English laurel are more of a hedge material, so within that 5 feet, we won't have overcrowding or growing out onto the property line or into the driveway.
Are these incompatible? I mean, like if you have a tree here, you can't plant that in between? Or you might have a tree and then a gap and then this stuff?
There'll be the tree trunk will be there, depending on the size of the ball going in. I think it's 2 to 2.5 inch. You're looking at a 28-inch ball. So within that 14, 15 inches from the edge of the trunk to the edge of that ball, we won't be able to plant anything. But on the outside of that ball, I can plant a bayberry or the English laurel, which will grow up and then eventually fill into the trunk of the tree. So there will be a gap there, and that's what you get when you're doing shade trees, as opposed to doing everything as an evergreen.
And that's 20 years down the road, it'll all grow together and the trunk will be in the middle? Is that what happens?
The trunk, well, eventually the plant material will grow around the trunk. So if you look at a wooded area, you see a lot of large trees coming through and you have the understory underneath of it. It connects, it combines and connects and makes a solid screen.
All right.
But it won't be a solid,
Thank you.
It's a solid evergreen screen because of the size of the ball it has to go in.
But you would be still getting the tall
yes,
the canopy trees.
Yes. And the idea for the canopy trees there in the first place was to give extra screening between our townhouse units and the office building over there. We're going to get that second, third floor screening that we're looking for, which eventually his larger trees are not going to be able to support because eventually they're in decline, they're going to go down.
The other thing I'd like to say though too is this is not a residential building. Nobody lives in this area. This is a parking lot that we are providing screening against. But we'll take your recommendation.
I move to approve.
Okay, all who second? Further comment? Okay, approved as is. Thank you.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you. And then that's Exhibit C, correct? Yes, thank you.
Mr. Holden, so they are going to intermix some shade trees in that and like get the final tail end of that?
Yes. Okay, 771 to 797 East Lancaster, and they're not here tonight, correct?
That's correct.
So that will be tabled. (163) Eagle.
Good evening. I'm George Brosman. I'm here with Jeff Martin, who's the architect on this project. This is Eagle Village Shops, formerly known, I guess, as Spread Eagle Village. If you know that shopping center, it's what we call the Village Hall building here in the rear. The shopping center consists of several parcels that are sort of used together. A couple years ago, the Valley Forge Flowers moved into this building here along the back property line. They did a beautiful job with that building. And now they want to take this empty Village Hall building, which looks something like that. And Valley Forge Flowers would be repurposing the building for a garden center. And it's called The Barn at Valley Forge Flowers. We're here because this is a land development application that's before the township. And the only thing that they're doing is they're adding a new vestibule, which I'm pointing to, which will be shaped like a silo. They're taking up about 6 parking spaces to put a garden display area. And overall, they would be reducing impervious coverage.
Can you flip those around? They're upside down
sorry.
on the big screen. There you go. Thank you.
So this is a close-up of what I was just talking about. This is the front of the Village Hall property, or the building. The back property line is here. These are the parking spaces that I was talking about that would get taken up. The only tree that we've been able to identify that's larger than the 6 inches that would be near the area of disturbance is one 20-inch honey locust that's in a curbed island in the parking lot that wouldn't be touched by the project. Otherwise, there's no trees affected. We're asking for a land development waiver from the commissioners on Monday's meeting. We had been to the Planning Commission, and it's my understanding that if we get that, we'll still have to come back with a grading permit to do this work. And I don't know if that means we'll be back to you at that time as well, or whether this one visit to you would suffice.
Are you disturbing any, the only portion of the paving that you're disturbing is that this portion that's in dark gray, is that correct?
That's right.
So there won't be any damage to the stuff right in the roots or in the line, with a drip line around a tree, is that correct?
That's right.
You're not going to run like bulldozers and stuff over that area, right? Or are you?
But it's all macadam around it anyway.
It's all a parking lot, but if you're worried about that tree, we can certainly protect it. It already has a curb, an island around it, and we won't be disturbing that.
We could, if I may, the board could just recommend that the latest version of your tree fence protection, which can be set up on asphalt, which the 6-foot chain link, like a temporary job construction fence, could be put around there as part of the project. And we could ask the applicant to just show that on the plan.
We can do that.
Yeah, that was going to be my recommendation. Any other further thoughts on this particular submission? Everybody in accord?
You're asking for a waiver from what is it specifically you're asking us to do? It's a waiver for land development?
Well, not for you, but when we go to the commissioners on Monday, I think we're going to be asking for a waiver of land development. I'm not sure, Steve, if you know what we need from them, just a recommendation of approval?
Right, again, not to get the various boards and commissions priorities mixed up. So we have the Planning Commission, the Board of Commissioners that really deals with the land development side in that waiver request. And the purview of this advisory commission is to look at it from a planting standpoint, as far as, again, preserving natural features and trees that are there, or if you saw fit that you requested additional trees or shrubs be planted on. The applicant has made 2 previous presentations, one at the commissioners meeting and one at the Planning Commission, where they actually went through the full view of the building that will be put there and how it's going to be used. I don't know if you brought that with you. If you just want to show the Shade Tree Committee that, and maybe that'll give them a little better idea of what you plan to build. And really, my recommendation is that your comment would be more on what you'd like to see from a planning standpoint or a protection standpoint, knowing that it is, more or less a nursery/landscape place.
Yeah, Jeff can describe it, but basically we're adding a second floor over the existing footprint in that vestibule and the outdoor garden area, but go ahead, Jeff.
My name is Jeffrey Martin from JTA Associates. There is a mistake in the rendering that our artist put a light post where the existing tree is. And he did that because the tree was hiding his artwork. But we were doing this to show the building. But in fact, there will be that remaining tree there.
It's about the size of the one next to the car, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, we approve your plan.
Thank you.
With the condition, make sure you wrap that one locust tree
Thank you.
with the protection fence. Sure, thank you. Okay, Villanova train station improvements. Okay, I guess that one will be tabled as well. I just have one quick suggestion on both of those tabled items for the future meetings, and that is neither of those 2 plans are in compliance with the ordinance in regards to an island for tree planting per 12 parking spaces. (427) Barclay Road.
I'm William G. Smith. I'm here for 427 Barclay Road.
Yeah, if you just would describe, what I'm seeing is that you're changing the driveway slightly. You're adding a different front walk.
Yes. Different walk, and the drive is moving slightly, and there's 3 trees coming out.
Correct.
And the usual drainage is going in the underground water retention facility.
Correct.
And the tree protection we have on there is silt fence, and that's about it.
Okay.
What are the trees that are going to be removed? I'm only finding the oak in the middle of the house.
Let's see.
Next one's just to your right at the corner of the, go to the first, right there, that's the second one.
Could I ask the Shade Tree Commission, as you go through the plan, we are missing the table that shows what is being removed and what is being planted in lieu of the removed trees.
I saw these two. I don't know where the other one.
Perhaps we could have the applicant provide that, either for staff to take a look at if the shade tree moves on this plan, or for the Shade Tree Commission to. That's an important piece for our inspectors to have when they're out on the site, to know exactly what's coming down and exactly what's going back in.
This is the third time we've seen this, right?
I remember, yeah.
Yeah, this is the third time. So why did we ask them to come back the last time? I'm sorry, I don't remember. Because of what?
Large maple.
Yeah.
Putting the chain link fence around the larch.
Okay.
Right, I have that circled here.
So if my request would be, if the Shade Tree Commission is basically okay with the plan, and you were to approve it, not saying that you did, if you were to approve it, if we could have the applicant put the table on there and staff could verify that the table is on there and meets the shade tree ordinance requirements, that may save him a trip back for a single lot.
Okay. The other concern that I had is the 30-inch pine that is closest to the seepage bed out here in the back corner.
Above it?
Yes.
It looks as though you're running 6-inch PVC quite close to that tree, as well as the retention bed or the seepage bed is quite close to that tree as well. So you're hitting it from two sides.
Could you turn that bed?
I think the applicant could reroute that pipe pretty easily to avoid that tree. You could even keep the bed where it is, and the applicant could reroute that pipe, probably pick up another 10 feet from distance from the tree, and just have a T-section somewhere in the area where you see the 400 and the 400-foot contour elevation.
Well, he's got a grade line there too, Steve. He's got a 400 grade cut and he's got that box. If he could rotate that box lengthwise to crosswise, so it's running this way instead of up and down, and kick it toward the stockpile a little bit more, and then cut that grade line back off that tree root system. He's right underneath of it.
You're talking about the 18-inch yard drain box?
No, the
Your 16-foot by 30-foot seepage bed detention basin. If you could twist that, almost 90 degrees to the left.
So it runs along the back of the property line as opposed to the,
it's running this way.
yeah, horizontal.
Exactly.
Not this way.
Correct.
What's that do to the spreader? Is that a problem?
Question, is the location or the orientation of that seepage bed the problem, or is it the piping that's leading to it?
Both.
Yeah, it's both. But as Mr. Norsini suggested, he thinks that piping could be redesigned to avoid the root system more so. And again, if that seepage bed is twisted to the left, maybe I should think 45 degrees rather than 90, because the 90 then gets you into the 20-inch pine that's behind the silt fence. Those two in combination would help stay out of the root system of that tree.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with doing any of that.
Okay, do you understand what we're suggesting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Any further comment from the commission here?
Just had a question. Do we visit with that 36-inch sweep gum by the front walk prior to this, Howard, as far as adjustments on that front walk? Or?
Yeah, I had that red marked as well, Jim. That proposed front walk, how is that, what's the construction of that?
That is going to be flagstone and a bed of sand. Oh, there'll be flagstone and a bed of sand.
So what's that go down, 8 inches or something?
Yeah.
The sand, typically 4 to 6 inches a bed of sand, and then they tamp that down good and tight, and then put the flagstone on that.
So, Mr. Chairman, just so, getting back to the other one, so if the board sees fit, you'll approve with the following conditions: that the seepage bed be rotated 45 degrees to left and the piping be relocated. And that way, that'll go on to our permit reviewer. So it's all, that's why when we approve with conditions, I think it makes it more official. Everybody knows there's things that have to be done, along with what you're talking about.
And with that, before we leave that pine, would it be possible to extend the diameter of that now proposed tree protection fence to adequately encompass a bigger percentage of the root system there, in keeping with our movement of that pipe, that we don't have to dig, and removing of that bed so we can stay away from it?
Which tree is it?
We're back to the 30-inch pine, excuse me, I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
In front of the seepage bed, yes.
Can you make that adequate,
Oh, a larger radius?
larger radius?
Absolutely, yes.
The gum trees are notorious for having an abundance of surface roots, which you'll find coming out of the lawn, various locations around them. So the chances of you hitting a number of them while you're constructing this dry laid walk are going to become very apparent when you start to dig. So it would be my recommendation, if you could, as we have talked about in the past, to make sure that when we come in contact with these roots, that they're cleanly cut by an arborist, and possibly prepare this tree prior to your construction by some fertilization to promote some fibrous roots before you start cutting into these roots here.
Absolutely.
And if you could extend that, give that width of that sweet gum a greater breadth with that construction fence, possibly on that north side. It's going to be limited by your walk on the south side, but if you can branch that out to give you a little bit more room, as much as you can on the north side.
Yeah, and pull that proposed walk as closely to the proposed garage area as you possibly can.
Move it over a little closer, yes.
Howard, I'm still a little confused on the tree removal part. I found two. On the property out, within the property, new property outline, the oak and the two oaks. I didn't see the third one. And then the original sheet here says 6 trees are to be removed. Are you adding any replacement trees?
No replacements, no.
Have we gone over that about, I don't think we got to the replacement tree issue, right? Previous meetings?
You know, Mr. Norsini recommended in the very beginning that a proper table be included with this plan that clearly defines what trees are being removed, you know, what size they are.
That was all reason for coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. We're going to request that you come back to next month's Shade Tree Commission, meeting the conditions that we've just laid forward.
Okay.
Okay?
No chance we could do it conditionally with final approval based on meeting your conditions?
I think the thing that troubles us the most is the confusion over what trees are coming out.
Again,
and the table that, I mean, everyone comes to us with a clear table showing, you know, how many trees are coming out. And this particular plan does not indicate that.
well, there's conflicting information. It says, yeah, it says 6 on here, and there's only 2 X'd out on the map, and then our agenda for some reason says, I think, 3. So there's all kinds of different issues, opinions there on how many trees are coming out. And then I think we did ask, for the replacement trees, basically we're exactly where we were last meeting, as far as I can tell.
Well,
So maybe was somebody else here representing you last time?
No, this should be the first time this has come here. But,
The last one was very similar.
oh, that was one of the other builders.
Oh,
must have
okay,
been,
so this is
yeah.
the first time for this, okay.
Yeah, this is the first
Very
time
similar,
for this
yeah.
plan. But,
Okay, somebody said it was the third time. I apologize. Excuse me.
When are you planning to start actual construction?
we were going to start demolition in the middle of January to keep it on schedule with the bank and all that. Well, you know how that works, the money situation. But we'd have to come back, since we can't do it conditionally, we'll have to put it off a month or two. We can meet any conditions that you gentlemen stipulate and to keep it moving, if there's a way we can keep it moving, you know. But
I just don't think there's enough here, because, I mean, usually what we would do is, if we would do a stipulation, would be based on your preliminary ideas, in terms of the number of replacement trees, the kinds of replacement trees. Also, we don't know what trees are coming out, so we don't know whether to, you know, sometimes you find that trees are impacted that you are not aware of, and we see that those trees are impacted too. So there's not enough really to do a stipulation here.
The engineer had told me it was either 2 or 3 coming out, and I only see 2 here.
It says 6 on your plan. If you look down the bottom right-hand corner of your plan, right under the, right down the bottom there, note, 6 trees that are being removed.
Yeah, and that's too confusing for us to make. So that all needs to be cleaned up.
I understand.
And then come back. January 22nd is the next Shade Tree Commission meeting, so you're only about a week out of what you just suggested, which I don't think would be a terrible inconvenience.
Okay.
Any other
All right.
comments? Okay. Okay.
All right.
We'll,
Do you understand the table that you need to show us what trees are there and how many need to be, or which ones are going to be removed and things?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the engineer just has to put all that on there, but,
Okay.
okay. And he'll get notes on that from the township, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
yes, there will be a report that comes out from the Township Engineering Department,
Okay.
and it will clearly spell out what we just indicated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
.539 Brandymede. Okay, we will table that if there's no representation. .800 East Lancaster.
Karen McManuel, Associated Engineering, the civil engineer for representation here for Villanova University.
Okay, Karen, can I keep this short and sweet?
Absolutely.
What I'm seeing is it's simply a lawn or grass field that's being replaced with a synthetic turf, correct?
Correct.
And in that process, there would be increased stormwater retention installed to handle the synthetic field.
Correct.
Is there any trees impacted whatsoever by
No.
this project?
No, no trees are being removed. It's within the confines of the existing field, so we're not expanding and making them bigger or anything. So it's almost identical to what's there.
Okay, so you're here primarily because of the amount of soil and grading and all that stuff?
Correct, yes.
I see that a construction fence is around the entire perimeter of the whole project, not to impact any of the trees that are in the parking islands.
Right. Yeah, right.
No issue here.
if I may, this is actually one of the type of permit applications we're going to be next year when we provide some proposed amendments from staff to the Shade Tree Commission and ultimately the Board of Commissioners. As Mr. Holden stated, the only reason this project is here is because of the amount of dirt that's being moved. It has to go through the grading permit process where all the stormwater is looked at and everything else. But in reality, it's more a technicality that it's in front of this advisory commission because they're moving X cubic yards of earth, not on an impact of trees.
There's one tree in the corner there. Is that affected at all? It's on C.1.1. You can see it.
It's in a little island.
See right up at the top? All right. Right up at the top. That one.
For that one?
Yeah. Is that going to be affected in any way?
No, in fact, we're staying away from the tree and we're building grade up there, so we're not digging or cutting into that area at all.
And
If you look at C 2.1, C2.1, if you look at the shaded area is the new turf. So you can see we're about 25 feet away from that tree. No. No, because we're building up, we're not cutting into it.
Can you show where the soil stockpiled?
There is no stockpile.
There is no.
No, it's all going to be taken off-site. It's all, yep,
taken off-site.
off-site, yep.
You might want to put a protection fence around that one tree.
Okay. We actually do show it on C 1.3, our ENS plan. We do show the tree protection fence around there.
Okay, good job.
Good. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, 711 County Line Road.
Brian Matson from Mommy & Associates. We are representing the property owner, Joseph Bogo. The intent of this plan was to construct an addition to the existing residence on this property, as well as a patio along the south side of the house. The intent of the plan is to provide a drainage swale along the side of the addition and back to a stormwater system in the back of the property. The plan is to not remove any trees on the property.
Okay, and in my review, I did not see any impact on the tree, any of the trees. Are your grade changes staying pretty much the same, or are they changing?
They're pretty close to the same. There's going to be a slight drainage swale around the addition. Some minimal cut through there.
You're cutting on those, that swale, that 456, 455 grade line there around the house going toward the driveway where the swale's coming in?
Yes, correct.
You're cutting into two pretty big beech trees. What do you think the distance is between the end of the tail end of your 456 to the trunk of that 30-inch beech tree, where your tree protection fence ends? 457 ends. Page 3, sorry.
So you're looking at this beech tree
Correct.
right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, our tree protection fence is about 5 feet or so off the tree.
So it looks like you're going to be cutting back that grade by maybe 2 foot, 5 foot off of that 30-inch beech. If I split those two lines, 457.
Yeah, it's about it's almost a 1 foot cut in that area. That tree is about 20 feet off the corner of the proposed addition. We wanted to keep the center line of the swale 10 feet off of the house. And we're coming up from the center line of the swale. So we're about 5 feet off the tree at that point.
And you know, beech trees are one of our most susceptible to construction injury, and your proposed addition in combination with your proposed swale is probably going to do some detrimental damage to a good portion of the root system of that 30-inch beech. And also that 27-inch beech is also in jeopardy, closer to your driveway due to the impact from your digging.
For the 27-inch tree, we're a little bit further away. We could probably tighten up the grading closer to the house to alleviate some of the disturbance to the 27-inch tree.
Would it be worthwhile just seeing some kind of retaining wall or something holding around that tree rather than altering that grade so hard right there? Or a drain box put in so the grade doesn't have to be changed so much or something? The swale's too much, in my opinion, for that tree to survive either.
Jim, you talking about the 30-inch beech now? Or?
Yeah, correct, Jack. Do you see it off the proposed new addition corner there?
Yeah, sure. And there was what's the other tree you were worried about?
A little bit further, closer to the driveway, a 27-inch beech tree. It's quite a ways. It's a bit away, but still it's going to be impacted by that proposed grade cut.
Yeah, if there was some way that you could reduce the width of that swale.
Oh, this one here?
I think we would be open to providing a wall around the 30-inch beech to
Oh, no, okay. Oh, now, yes, okay.
protect the tree better than where it is currently.
Are there options of using the swell and not following the swell?
That's important.
Conversation.
Very important.
So we could.
I'm not an engineer, but it seems to me there must be another way to handle the water that swale is proposed to, carry and do much less damage to both of those trees. Whether it be like a collection box of sorts, and that all runs closer to the building, and you stay away from those trees as much as possible.
Yeah, we could definitely adjust the grading on this plan to move the grading further away from those trees.
Would you have to put the center line of the swale closer to the house, and would that be an issue?
We'd like to keep it, we could move a little bit closer. Generally like to keep it 10 feet off the house. So around the house, we could keep it at 10 feet, but then, I think through this corner and closer to the patio, we could move the center line of the swale closer in. Typically with these plans, we have a stormwater system in the back. Typically we would run a pipe collecting the rainwater conductors and pipe it back to the system. In this case, instead of bringing a pipe through the roots, we tried to keep it overland down to an inlet down by the system to avoid disturbance of the trees. But I think we'd be open to moving the swale closer to the house, closer to the patio, to avoid the trees.
I mean, you may want to have an arborist do a condition report for you on this tree just to see what the viability of it is, if it's in a poor condition to begin with. You might opt to have it removed rather than do all this work around it and then have a dying tree and not really what you want to begin with. So you may want to have someone take a close look at it for you and provide a report about how it looks.
Joe Bogo, I'm the owner. Is there a way we could offer to plant more trees, especially evergreens? Because I actually need to do that. And I've actually added about 50 trees already, evergreens, because I'm in need of more evergreens. So just to alleviate if there's a damage to the tree, I'm willing to offer to plant more trees, and we can put that as a condition.
Would that be agreeable, Howard, if it's a... I'd like to see you have a certified arborist do a condition report for you for that tree to see how it is to begin with. If it has to be, if it is in poor shape, I would rather see you remove it and then apply those trees to the compensatory tree planting as it states in our ordinance as far as what types of trees we want you to put back in. But if that could be re-engineered and just shrunken down a bit, that swale, you might find a happy medium to save the tree and to get what you want if it's not over-engineered. If you can still get the water to do what you want it to do without having to get into that tree so much.
Yeah. Would that result to a delay in the project? Or would there be a way we can address that and still progress with the... We'll do whatever you want to make sure that...
When do you plan to start?
Supposed to start 2 months ago.
You must work for the government like that.
Yeah, I was trying to beat the winter, but now we are beyond that. So January was going to be the time when I was going to start the project. But I don't see any, I think there's going to, we're going to do whatever you want to make it work, and we are willing to consider those other options that the surveyor is proposing. But for the interest of getting the process moving, because now if this holds, then I can't even proceed with submitting the plans to the inspector to look at until February.
Well, would it be possible for in interim to give him conditional approval if we have John take a look at it? He tightens up those lines and go with that. Yeah. And if there's roots that are impacted, be cut and the tree be fertilized. The beech trees.
Yep. We generally prefer to save the shade trees, and we don't usually do evergreens as replacement for shade trees.
Yeah, and I can put other trees that you want.
Yeah, but
so
We prefer to save these. It doesn't look like it's not that hard, really, to save these.
Yep.
Okay. Are they in good shape? Are you familiar with them?
I've only been there 2 years.
Okay.
But I think some of them, there are some that have like a hollow in between, inside the, which are actually dangerous that will need to come out. So.
Well, we just have conditional approval if it's possible based on our arborist assessment of the beech tree, and then the tightening up of those grade lines if it is preserved. I just had one more question on it would be on the west side of the property, future septic system, it states by others, it says here.
Yeah, the current septic system is almost 30 years old. So at some point, I know I'm gonna have to replace it. I've been told it lasts about 30 years. When I moved into the property 2 years ago, there was an inspection done and it was in good working condition. But I wanted this reflected here to show that if I have to do that in the future, at least that's considered now. To show that if there's room for new septic test system, then that's where it would go.
There is one tree just to the south of that that's not labeled, but it's included with, it looks like tree protection fence there.
38 inch, 36 inch beech.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. That probably won't withstand that project. If it, excuse me? I don't think it will. It won't make it if that is proposed. So that tree would have to be removed if you're going to propose that septic system there.
In the future, yeah. That's not currently planned.
So that's, we're not voting on that. We're not voting on you putting that in tonight.
No. Okay. I was just trying to make sure that if I have future plans, because that's only, it's 30 years old, the septic tank, it's 30 years already, so it's in the tail end of its lifespan.
Could I ask the applicant, is there any way you came up with the size of that septic field? The proposed, the future one?
Yes, I think there was, we had the guy who did the stormwater management park test, he's the one who designed it.
Okay, because just, it could go, after 5 years, this permit, the grading permit, would have to be renewed.
Yes.
So my thought would be, if it confuses the issue and you take that off, when you have to get your system replaced,
yep,
come back for another grading permit, and it might make this cleaner and easier moving forward.
And you're right. So we are not asking for approval for the septic tank. We just reflected it there, so you can reflect that in the permit process. That if I have to put a septic tank, I would have to come back here.
Is it possible to, at that time, move that septic system closer to the existing?
And that's also, there's all the state rules, governing how close it is to the house, how close it is if you have a well. So this could be in your future, and those rules could dictate a shift in location or maybe even a shift in size if you use a slightly different technology for the bed. And you might be, for lack of a better term, hamstringing yourself now when you don't need to. And in 2 years, you have somebody design it, come back in for a grading permit, and it might not even involve the Shade Tree Commission.
Right. So, I don't think he's asking for anything tonight on that. He's just saying, he's just showing that that's on the plans.
Right, but I mean, it's already under consideration now because it's being shown. The fact that it's noted there, it's already under consideration because we have comments on the tree.
Right, so it would be prudent for him to just simply take it off it?
Yeah. Just a recommendation. It might be cleaner and easier.
Just delete it.
Yeah, can I ask a question? So if I was to put that septic tank there now, I would have to take out the tree, is that right?
Yeah, I think what's being recommended is to take that future septic system off the map altogether now.
Okay.
And then the 36-inch beech tree will be dealt with when you do build your septic system. You come back for grading again.
Okay.
And then the 36-inch beech will be dealt with if it need be.
Okay. At that time.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but I'm still gonna get a conditional approval, assuming that I get that out of the mountain.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I'm hearing is you take that off the plan, reduce the size of the swale as much as possible, have the township arborist assess the 27 and the 30-inch beech, and make sure that you put tree protection fence around both of them if the township arborist suggests that both of those trees are worth sustaining.
Okay.
Now, suppose they discover, when the township arborist looks at it, that 30-inch beech is actually not in good condition, then he can just take it out, but then he has to plant new trees in accordance with the formula. Is that correct?
You're not taking any trees out, right?
No.
So he could come back with a clearing permit. Yeah, the 27 could be a clearing, 30-inch, you're into a heritage tree, and at that point, you would have to plant 3 trees if you had to take it out.
That's fine.
But whether or not you take it out would be dependent upon the condition that the township arborist looks at, right?
Correct.
Is that clear? You understand?
Yes.
Thank you.
All in accord?
Yep.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now. Uh, 417 Boxwood.
Good evening. I'm David Nonamaker from Outer Spaces, Inc. I'm the pool contractor for the homeowner. So we're proposing to put a new swimming pool in the backyard, which is right here. It's basically in the center of a lawn area now. There's gonna be some regrading necessary. The one wall of the pool on the upper side here is actually gonna act as a retaining wall, and we're actually gonna continue some retaining walls around the sides. We're also putting a new retaining wall along the property line there to kind of level this area out. And there's some proposed drainage that we're going to tie into the existing infiltration system that's in the front yard. All the larger shade trees are to the back of the property, so we're not going to be impacting those. This is a newer house. I think was probably built about maybe 8 years ago. In that time, so we're kind of working within the kind of previously cleared yard area.
Just a couple little notes. None of the trees are identified on my plan per our ordinance here, just genus and species. And you don't have any neighbors' trees plotted. I think we go over the line by 10 feet, Howard. Yep. I'm just a little concerned on that west side, what we're getting into, possibly conflict with some neighbors' trees. We're going to be doing a lot of grading, and you have your infiltration bed over there.
That's actually their driveways right there, actually, on the west side.
Right.
As far as where the retaining wall is going.
Excuse me, your retaining wall. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's actually their driveway's right below that. So there's a little bit of lawn area, and then it's like right now there's just a slope that goes down to their some cobblestones and then their asphalt driveway.
I guess the most important thing for me would be if there's any trees right there on the neighbor side, because you're going to be. I'm just assuming your retaining wall on a footer, the regular construction practices would be happening here. If there's anything in that area that might be impacted.
Yeah, I mean there aren't any. There's some some shrubs there. They have a swim, so it's the driveway, and then they have a fence because they have a swimming pool right on the other side of the property, and they have some skip laurels and some shrubs there, but there's no large shade trees there.
The ordinance does require that you should have all the trees within 10 feet of the property line on the other side.
It requires?
Yeah, the ordinance requires that. That's what they're asking for.
Okay.
Even if they're none there, you can simply say they're none there, but
Okay.
you're supposed to show them.
All right, yeah.
But you say that the lawn tapers down to the driveway, or you're putting in a retaining wall because there's a major grade difference there?
Because, yeah, the lawn slopes, there's about a 5 foot grade change that slopes down to the neighbor's driveway there.
And so you want to flatten out the surface on your side by putting a retaining wall there?
Exactly. They want to flatten out. It gives them about 10 more feet of usable lawn area there.
Okay. But there are no trees at all in the area where the pool is. There's the rectangle. You show it.
Right, 20 by 40, and it's going in the existing lawn area.
The big black line is it says it's the limits of the disturbance, right? And the heavy black line there.
Yes.
Okay. But it just happens that it's also shows where the retaining wall will be along the top. Retaining walls actually right next to it.
The retaining wall's right here. It's about maybe 8 feet inside of it.
Doug, are you on the west side? Are you talking about on the west side, Doug?
Talking about against the adjacent driveway.
Oh, right.
That. Okay. But there's also,
right, we're just inside that because the retaining wall is going to be going close to the property line.
okay. But you say there's also one on the pool? One side of the pool?
Yeah, it's more of a decorative retaining wall. So it's actually it's actually the edge of the pool. So,
okay.
And it just wraps around.
All right, thank you.
It's just a low kind of landscape wall as it comes off the edges of the pool there.
Okay. But there are no trees or anything in that area at all?
No, it's all lawn. It's actually, it's lawn, and they have a pretty wide mulched landscape shrub bed that they have that comes through here, and then behind that is where any of the existing larger shade trees. It's kind of like an unmanicured. It's kind of like they have their manicured area, and then they kind of go into like just a woodland. But they've just let the leaves go.
Any further thoughts?
Can we give conditional approval on this, Howard? Pending the trees be identified? Also, if they do, we have to inquire in regard to any neighbor's trees on that side?
Correct.
What happens if they're trees that are identified? That has to come back to us?
It would have to come back. Okay.
Is the as far as identifying any trees, is it just within? When you say that whole side of the property has been re-landscaped because we actually built the neighbor's pool back when they built the house, and so there's just they have a fence and then they just have shrubs going down. And just that type of newly landscaped, just it's like shrub beds.
6-inch diameter, right, Howard?
Okay.
Yeah.
Along like that whole, like even, I can't remember as you get back to the back of the property, but if it's, within a certain.
I think it would be mostly in your area of disturbance, Howard, right? On either side of the property line.
Okay, so maybe okay.
And probably the east side down here too, right?
Correct. It would be on the east side too.
So down the bottom.
Okay.
West side's the top, east side's the bottom.
I guess we'd be most interested if there's trees that are identified within the 10 feet of the west western side of this property that would be impacted by this retaining wall and this grading change. The east side, it doesn't look like there's anything going on.
Right. It looks to me as though it's that west side is the mystery. And then again, I see a couple trees on here. There's a 5-inch clump birch, and then you got an 8-inch cherry, and there's really not that many trees on this property from what this plan is suggesting. You good? Okay, well, your conditional approval, and that being that you identify any trees that might be on that west side, and then identifying, by genus and species, the trees that are on the property.
Okay.
And you can submit that to the engineering department, and they'll review it, and if they're happy with it, you can move forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. (311) Midland.
I was gonna say, he's back.
Making you earn your keep tonight, huh?
We suppose. Back for more. Brian Matson from Mommy and Associates. We're the civil engineers for the project. Project proposes a new addition to the back of the existing residence, as well as a new garage, detached garage in the back with some reworking of the driveway. And there's also proposed a new pool in the eastern yard. There are no trees proposed to be removed with this project.
Is this storm water management proposed or is existing?
Yes, this is a proposed system. The intent is to collect the downspouts from the garage and the addition and bring it back to the stone bed.
Would it be advisable on that east side to add some tree protection fence where your spiller is getting piped toward Midland?
Right, so along the outlet pipe, bring some fence along here?
Yes.
Yes.
And then you have a 30-inch tree. Is it? It looks like a walnut or WL.
It is a walnut, yes.
What is that on the north side of your proposed garage, it was very close to that little building that that's getting torn down, right?
Right, yeah, there's a shed in the back that's being taken out.
Was that shed on a footer or on a concrete slab at all, do you know?
It's on a concrete slab.
So that's all getting pulled out?
Correct.
And then you have a grade line change coming in contoured with that toward the back of that proposed garage?
Yes, correct. Now, the grades are pretty similar to existing. We have the proposed 360 contour right on top of the existing 360. So there's some minimal cut in the back.
You're just moving that water off the back of the driveway there?
Right.
I would just recommend to be careful when you pull that slab out. It's just going to be loaded with walnut roots from that tree, I would imagine, when they're pulling that up. To be very careful how they do it, rather than with a backhoe. If they could do it, if it's possible to do it manually, you could lessen the amount of equipment back there. And really try to pull that tree protection fence as close to that garage as you could to limit the disturbance back there, because as it's set right now, depending on what your process of building is going to be, you know, if this pool's going in last, that's going to be the only avenue to build the pool is going to be going around the garage. I don't know whether that's how the schedule of events is going to happen or not, but I could kind of see it being that way.
I think the intent would be to go in between the garage and the addition.
There's enough room there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that is 16 feet. Yes.
Would it be possible to give some more room to that walnut tree with your tree protection?
Yeah, perhaps once the shed is removed, the tree protection can be moved further away from the tree.
And then maybe tighten up those grade lines not to go into those roots that you're going to expose once that pad comes up. Do you know what I mean? To add to the compaction of it.
Right, yes.
As a matter of interest, you're building the pool at the same time you're building the garage and all, right? Or is that a future thing?
Yeah, this is all to be done at the same time.
If you know, you could build the pool before you build the garage. That would make sure that you've got the clearance space and so forth. I'm not telling you what to do.
Yeah, definitely that would be a good possibility.
Yeah, if you could stage those as was suggested, to build your pool first, to build your garage second. And when you take the shed out with that concrete pad that's existing, rather than pull a backhoe in and just start pulling away at it, as Jim suggested, if it could be a more manual system, perhaps jackhammer it such you get smaller pieces. You're not just trying to rip up, a whole pad and then let it break where it wants to. It'd probably cause much less damage to the walnut root system.
Okay.
Okay, any further recommendations? Okay, with those conditions, you're good to go?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next meeting is January 22nd. And I just want to take a moment to thank Chanticleer Foundation for for their recent contribution to Radnor Township of $20,000 to help maintain, plant, and evaluate trees throughout the township. And I'll close finally by saying this is my last meeting, and I have had great pleasure in serving Radnor Township over the years, and I assure you all that you're still in good hands as Jim Ward takes the chair. So again, thanks, and see you later.